What is going on? It's Ethan Alexander Show for the first time in I don't even know how long. Episode five, maybe six. I don't really keep up with the Ethan Alexander Show how I do with the Three Wine podcast, but today is the opening day of my spring break. So I got Friday off of everything, so I was sitting at home, not doing anything. Figured I'd stop being a lazy slob, get up, pick a microphone, and talk about sports. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And by just talk about sports, I mean talk about a very, very select group of sporting topics, mostly basketball, because that's what I know. But yeah, it's nice to be back. It's been a bit of a hiatus on even the Three Wine podcast because I've had to be out of town for a couple weeks leading up to this. Hopefully, we get out a podcast on Monday, despite the fact that I will be in Florida. The issue with having literally no money for this project, Three Wine that is that we have to be in this room with these microphones on this computer to record the podcast. There is no Zoom podcast or anything like that because I don't have the capabilities to edit and put it all together properly in a way that I feel would be worthy of putting out on the internet. And so because of that, we're very limited to our times. If we're out of town, we're out of town. There's no podcast that week. So that's been a bit of a bump we've hit over the last couple of weeks. Hopefully we will pre-record a podcast either tonight or tomorrow for Monday for the Three Wine podcast. But that's not what we're here doing today. What we're here doing today is the Ethan Alexander Show. And by what we means is just me because it's my show. And today we're going to be talking about sports. I wanted to open it up with a topic that we've covered on the Three Wine podcast that we haven't covered on here because I simply haven't done an episode since this news came out. It was Tom Brady coming back, and I'm not going to talk a lot about that in particular because it's been like a couple weeks since since that whole thing happened. So that's not big news. It's not breaking news. Not something I really care to spend a lot of time talking about. However, Bruce Arians did just retire. Listen, I'm not a big football guy. I can't remember quite if he retired or if he just left the Buccaneers. I think he retired, which should key you in on a couple of things because he wasn't going to retire when Tom Brady retired, and now that Tom Brady's back, he retired. There's been a lot of comeuppance in that those two don't really get along. Those two aren't the greatest of friends. They kind of worked together. First year, get that Super Bowl. I'm sure they liked each other's company. That year, maybe not, but I would assume you're winning a Super Bowl with the greatest quarterback of all time. Bruce Arians would kind of be chill about it and kind of let Brady run the show. Maybe not. He might just be a jerk. But this past year, they, of course, didn't win. It was kind of disappointing in the playoffs. So who knows what happened. But I know that there's been a lot of stories coming out that they weren't the greatest of buddies. And that Tom Brady coming back, he probably pushed Bruce Arians out. Is that okay? Yeah, duh. It's Tom Brady. Tom Brady can do whatever Tom Brady wants to do. He can have whatever coach he wants to have. The only coach that I don't think he could drag from their location to come down to Tampa Bay is Belichick because he's on the same level that Brady's on. So other than that, Brady could literally have any coach he wants. It's just he could be the coach. He could pull a Bill Russell 1960s, be the player coach, win a Super Bowl, being the best player on the team and the coach. I genuinely think that is a legitimate thing that could happen. I don't think it will, but like I said, I think he could have literally any coach in the league that he wanted apart from Belichick. So what's this mean for the Buccaneers? Literally nothing. Bruce Arians is a good coach. I think we all can agree that he is a good coach. I think we can also all agree that it doesn't matter what coach Tom Brady has. Tom Brady, and he's gonna win football games and probably Super Bowls even at his advanced age of 75 or however old he is now. But yeah, I think this is very for how big of a deal people are making this. I don't think it's a big deal at all. Tom Brady can do literally whatever he wants to do, and if that is kick a coach out of town, he can kick a coach out of town and then post on his Instagram how much he loved that coach. And we all know he's lying. It doesn't really matter. He's Tom Brady. He could probably literally move the franchise of Tampa Bay to another city. It's that easy. I mean, he is the football god. He can do whatever he pleases. That is all I have. I just wanted to tackle that topic because it was one I saw yesterday that I thought was pretty funny. because Bruce Arians, first off, is a funny looking guy. So anytime that he is in the news, I like to read about it because his face and just the way he's built cracks me up. And then it's Tom Brady, of course. Putting Tom Brady literally anywhere in a podcast will get you views. And let's be honest, I'm selfish, and that's all I care about. But let's now talk about the stuff I actually care about, know about, and want to talk about. That's basketball. If you don't like basketball, I would say tune out now, but don't. Just sit this on your just on your table next to you, go to sleep. I don't care. Just let the whole video play through, even if you don't like basketball. Just be a good person for once. NCAA Final Four men's. Big whoop. Okay, look, blue blood city. All right, we got Duke, we got North Carolina, which is a big game, and I'll talk about that. Villanova, Kansas. The closest thing to not being a blue blood is Villanova, who has won 2 championships in the past less than 10 years, 8 years. So I mean, like they're a blue blood in my book. They're not a historical blue blood, but as far as today goes, they are 100% a blue blood. They have the best coach in college basketball, in my opinion. Villanova is just as much of they're more of a blue blood, in my opinion, than Kansas is. Kansas hasn't done jack squat in the last 10 years, or in a little bit more. He just hasn't. They just haven't. Kansas has just not been at the level of the other blue bloods. Neither has Kentucky. And obviously, we all know what happened to Kentucky. Kentucky gets beat by St. Peter's. St. Peter's makes a run to the Elite Eight. Greatest Cinderella story of all time, in my opinion. 15 seed doing what they did was pretty incredible. But they get beat by UNC, who absolutely whooped them randomly. Like, it was just like St. Peter's was like, oh, well, we got here. Time to forget how to play and start playing like the 15 seed we were given, because they definitely didn't play like the team that beat Kentucky, Murray State, and then, geez, I can't even remember. Oh, Purdue. Purdue, who was my literal pick to win it all. That's like, you can't. Even if Purdue wasn't as good as I thought they were, you can't beat a team that I think could have won it all and then lose to 26 by a UNC team that was not that great this season. Even if they lost, it's fine. But the way they lost, I was like, what in the world? How did they get here and then do that? I'm not making fun of St. Peter's. It's freaking St. Peter's, but come on. I really wanted to see them beat UNC. Anyways, UNC winning did set us up for Duke versus UNC, the first time the two programs will ever meet in the NCAA tournament. Hopefully, the last time. Actually, that's not completely true. Hopefully the last time in the Final Four, because it's a good and bad thing. You know, one of them is going to lose, which is good, but one of them will also go to the championship game, which is not good. So we don't want that. Maybe like a second round would be nice to see those two go head-to-head. But this is the first time they ever have, and it will be the last time, as well as the first time, Coach K has ever played UNC in the tournament. And guys, I hate to break it to you, Duke is going to win this game. It's tomorrow. Look, as much as I want UNC to win, which is crazy for me to say because I hate North Carolina, I hate Duke a little bit more. And as much as I want to see Coach K lose and cry and never be seen again ever, they're going to win this game. It's just, they're the better team. They have Coach K, who, as much as I hate him, is a great coach. And they have everything behind him, man. It's his last year. They have this team that was good, great at points, kind of underperformed, and then they lose to UNC in Coach K's last ever home game, last ever regular season game against UNC. They lose. That should tell you that this was all the stars aligned for this to happen, right? This is a movie. They're gonna write a movie about this, and it will be probably pretty bad. But hey. I think this is clear and obvious. Like, the NCAA might be kind of rigged. Not saying that it's rigged. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the NCAA might be kind of rigged. UNC beating the crap out of Duke at home. Coach K's last ever game. Coach K's little weasel self walks up to the front of the room. He's like, "Today's game was unacceptable. But this season was very acceptable. And it's not over yet." And then he walks off like he's cool. He's like 130. He's like about to keel over. And he walks off like he's cool. And this lady in the background's clapping with her like fingers wide open, like she's paralyzed from the elbow down, and she's doing her best to give to kowtow to the coach Krzyzewski. That's what I'm talking about. Like this is the movie. This is what they've been working on for his entire career. They actually had this planned out when he took the job in 1979 or 80. That this is what they planned. They said in your last year you will get stomped at home in your last game by your arch nemesis, whose coach retired just last year and whose new and upcoming coach is coming in, Hubert Davis, to bring about a new generation of UNC Tar Heels, and they're gonna beat the crap out of you at home, and then you're gonna have a really good tournament run. But guess who else is them? And then not only are they having a good tournament run like you, but they're the hottest team in college basketball, and they're gonna beat this crazy Cinderella team to get to the Final Four. No one thought they were gonna get there. They beat the number one seed, returning champion Baylor, and then they beat this Cinderella team, St. Peter's, to get to the Final Four. And you you didn't even have to beat the best team in the country, Gonzaga, because they got handled by this underdog Arkansas team that you destroyed right after they beat Gonzaga. And you're sitting so comfortably, and here comes UNC. They're so hot. They're ready to take the throne. They're ready to end Coach K, and it doesn't end there because Coach K is the greatest coach in college basketball history, and he's going to come in and he's going to destroy the UNC Tar Heels, Hubert Davis, and that Brady Manic, Larry Bird looking MFer, and he's just going to take him down. It's the biggest fraudulent thing I've ever seen. This was a movie before it started, right? This is absolutely ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Then on the other side, you have a very boring game, right? A very tame game, a very slow, a game that not a soul cares about. Because on the other end, two behemoths are looking down the throat of the tournament, and they're preparing to wage war for Coach K's legacy. And then on the other end, you have Kansas and Villanova. Villanova has not been great this tournament. They kind of just coasted to the Final Four. Kansas has not been great literally all year, and they've been pretty good in the tournament, but almost got upset by Miami and then just decided to learn how to play basketball in the second half and ended up beating Miami by 20. And they're going to go head-to-head, and I'll be honest, I have no clue who's going to win, and I'll be honest, I don't really care because I have a good feeling that whoever comes out of that Duke-UNC game is going to win the whole thing. The only way this could be more movie-like is if Duke and UNC met in the championship game. That's the only thing keeping me from being like, no, the NCAA is rigged. This is all planned. This is all pre-planned. This was all supposed to happen. Because we all know if the NCAA really wanted this to be how it worked out, this would be the championship game, UNC versus Duke. This would not be a Final Four matchup just to get set up against Villanova or Kansas. Kansas, who has not won a championship since John freaking Calipari took over at Kentucky, right? Since the dinosaur age of college basketball, Kansas has not won a championship, you know what I mean? And Villanova has won a couple championships, but they're so boring, and their best player is the same weird-looking small white guy every single year. It's so odd that they're here every year. They have two championships. If they win a third one, and they're in my opinion the best college basketball team in the nation for the decade. I mean, Villanova's that good, but they're still so dang boring because no one. Where is Villanova? I know where Villanova is, but do you? It's Villanova. You gotta have the only reason people know where Duke is because they've been around for so long. If Villanova had been around for the same length of time that Duke's been around, everyone would know where Villanova is. But like North Carolina, Kansas, they're states. You know what I mean? Villanova, where's Villanova? You know what I mean? They're boring. They have no spice. Jay Wright is just John Calipari if he actually knew how to coach. And instead of recruiting these players that just underperform every year, he just recruits random 75th in the country little white dudes who 4 years later end up being the best player in college basketball, guys like that. So he's really nothing like John Calipari other than he's slightly better looking. That's really all you get from Villanova. And then Kansas, I couldn't care less about Kansas. They're such a fraud blue blood. They're Indiana, really. They're Indiana if the Indiana got to the Final Four every year and then just lost. But no, we're all talking about Duke. We're all talking about UNC. Whoever comes out of that game is going to win it all, even if UNC comes out of that game, despite the fact that they're the 8 seed, which would be pretty cool that an 8 seed wins it all, but I really don't want North Carolina to win it all. Best case scenario, Villanova wins it all. I don't see that happening. Second best case scenario, Kansas wins it all. I don't see that happening. Third, best case scenario, obviously UNC. Fourth, Duke. I really don't want Duke to win. If Duke wins, dude, I might go into a catatonic state for a significant period of time. I will be distraught, a self-induced coma, if you will. Let's move on to the NBA. Because while I am relatively upset, pissed, if you will, about the NCAA tournament, I'm even more so about the NBA. And I know a lot of people, a lot of folks don't care about the NBA these days. You know, in March, it's time to talk about college basketball. You know what I'm talking about. But I'm always on that NBA grind. And you know who's not? Utah Jazz. As you can see, above my shoulder, I have a Utah Jazz pennant. Above my other one, I I have a Utah Jazz reserved parking Jazz fans only sign. If you had it, you can't see it, but right up there is a Donovan Mitchell Funko Pop, and my shirt that I'm wearing under my Kentucky sweatshirt right now is a Utah Jazz Donovan Mitchell shirt jersey. I'm a big Jazz fan, which gives me the right to criticize this team. The Utah Jazz are the most consistently average team, not only in the NBA, but maybe in the history of sports. If you didn't know, the Utah Jazz have the best winning percentage of any NBA team ever. Ever. They don't have a single championship. We all know that. We all know that they don't have a single championship. But it's just how consistently average this team is that lets you know what's really going on. And not only that they're in Salt Lake City, Utah, which might be the most average city in the world. It's just that this team has no shot ever. Ever. Their best player, Donovan Mitchell, is the only player this year that I am not going to complain about in this video. Let that be known. Donovan Mitchell is very good at basketball. Let that be known. Now, let's get started. I just wrote a blog about this. Go read it, the 3 Wine Sports blog. You can literally find the link in any of our social medias. 3 Wine Sports blog. Rudy Gobert is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. That is incredible. That doesn't happen very often. He has been so much worse this year than he was last year. It's actually crazy. He should still be the Defensive Player of the Year, but he won't win it. You got to realize that for a guy like him, people don't like him, so you have to be extra good every year so that you can win that award again. He deserves it. If he was a liked player, he would already be keyed in to win it. However, he's not, so he's got to be even better, and he's not even better. He's just about the same level as he was last year. He's not going to win it again. I don't know who's going to win it. I don't know who they're going to give it to. They might give it to Gobert just because no one else is really standing out. They might give it to Mikal Bridges for Christ's sake. But look, I like Rudy. I'm a staunch Rudy Gobert supporter. I mean staunch. You don't get much more Rudy Gobert support over the last 3 or 4 years than me. However, as we get farther and farther down the road and this team seeps into more and more mediocrity, it seems more and more likely that this thing is just not going to work. All right? The only guy on this team that I could see fitting a timeline if you started a rebuild right now is Donovan Mitchell, because he would be the leader. He could have some youth under him, and eventually maybe they could compete for a championship, kind of Milwaukee Bucks style. You know, they realized how good Giannis was, and they said, hey, let's do this thing where we kind of build a team around Giannis to fit Giannis and throw in a couple quasi all-stars here and there. Why don't the Jazz do that? They're only a little bit smaller of a market than Milwaukee. No free agents picking Milwaukee over Utah simply because of the city. Now, because Giannis is there, maybe. But this rebuild needs to happen, man. Then you have Mike Conley. Mike Conley is old as dirt. I love him to death. He seems like a really sweet guy. One time I went to a Utah Jazz game in Memphis, and he ate breakfast right next to us in our hotel. And he had his kids with him. I said hi to him. He seemed very nice. He's old, and he just doesn't fit the timeline. He just doesn't fit the Jazz's timeline. This year will be the last year that I would like to see Mike Conley on the Jazz. Not because he's a bad player, not because he is, well, yeah, because he's old, but I don't think he's holding us back. We can't win right now, right? We can't win right now. So we have to win in the future, and he has no future, right? He's old. He's only a couple years away from retiring. So you have to be like, Utah Jazz can't win right now. They must win in the future. We must plan for the future. Mike Conley doesn't fit the future. Rudy Gobert is 30, barely fits the future. I think Rudy Gobert needs to be traded. I don't like that. I don't like that I think that way, but I think that's probably the best case scenario. Bojan Bogdanovic is very good when he plays, but he's always hurt. He just doesn't fit a championship team. You need consistency. He's just not consistently healthy. Royce O'Neal is the modern-day George Niang. He is not good at basketball. He's a fraud. Look, he sometimes will show up. He's supposed to be our best perimeter defender. If Royce O'Neal is your best perimeter defender, you're in you're in a lot of trouble. Okay, you're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. Jordan Clarkson, sixth man of the year last year, has had a very, very bad year. Incredibly inefficient player. Doesn't fit the timeline. Get him out of here. Right? You can't have inefficiency like that when you're on a rebuild. You just can't. I'm making sure to cover every base. I'm not going to go through every single one, but all of the off-season moves that we did, throughout the season moves that we've done, have failed. They've all been bad. The only one that shows any promise is Eric Paschall, and we have a coach at the helm who's a moron, which makes sense because he's coming out of a Duke system under Coach K. Quinn Snyder is a moron. He doesn't play Eric Paschall. Eric Paschall is the only bright side that we've gotten out of any of the offseason or during season moves. Daniel House, I'll take that back. Daniel House has shown some upside. Moron Snyder will not play him. When he plays him under Royce O'Neal, who he's better than. Daniel House is better than Royce O'Neal. It's sickening how stubborn Quinn Snyder is. And I'll tell you this, I'm not used to seeing coaches this stubborn, and I have to watch Coach Calipari. Every year on a regular basis. You don't think I know stubborn coaches? I know a stubborn coach when I see one immediately. Quinn Snyder is a stubborn coach. He's the stubborn coach, right? He is so stuck in his ways that don't work. He won't. It doesn't matter how bad his golden boys play, because they won't lose any minutes under him. He trusts them undyingly. They could play the worst year of their career, and they'll still have the exact same amount of minutes as when they were playing their best. Jordan Clarkson, for example. And then you have guys like Eric Paschall and Daniel House sitting on the bench behind guys that are not playing good, that he will not give more minutes because they're not part of that group, not part of that core that he trusts. Despite the fact that every time they touch the floor, they're better than the guys that are playing more. It's so apparent what he's doing. He thinks that we're the best team in the league. He thinks that we have a possibility of being the best team in the league. We do not. This team, how it is currently constructed, does not have the possibility to win a championship. And I did not used to think that, right? I was fully in the Jazz or contender boats just like a couple months ago. We're so pretenders right now. We're currently sitting at the 6th seed. 6th seed. We were the 1st seed in the entire league last year. We're now sitting in the 6th seed in the West behind the Memphis Grizzlies, who we destroyed in the first round, right? Behind the Warriors, who are barely healthy and haven't been healthy in years, right? Behind the Mavericks, who have one player. Not that they're not a decent team, but they really have one player. And behind the Nuggets, who even more so than the Mavericks, have one player. One player. And you have, with the Jazz, you would think, an incredibly well-rounded, structured team. You don't. It's like these guys don't want to win basketball games. It's the most mind-boggling and confusing thing I've ever seen. So what is the solution for this? To trade everybody but Donovan Mitchell and a couple guys that you think might be able to fit the timeline of a rebuild. Jared Butler, right? Udoka Azubuike, Eric Paschall, maybe he's even a little too old. Trent Forrest, guys like that. If you can trade them for things that you think are more valuable, get them out of here, right? But they're the only guys that are fringe on the not on the trade block after this year, as far as I'm concerned. Everybody else is up for auction, up for offer. Right? They should be sent off just get something in return and start a rebuild. Because the current way they're constructed isn't going to work. right? Bojan Bogdanovic, I love him, he's got to go. Jordan Clarkson, don't love him so much, got to go. Mike Conley, love him, got to go. Rudy Gobert, it's so hard, right? It's so difficult for me to be like, he's got to go. But if we could get a ton of good assets for him, he's got to go. It's time for a rebuild in Utah. We've been average for too long. It's time to get started fresh before we waste a superstar's entire career. We've seen this happen before. We've seen superstars waste their entire careers on meddling teams. Kevin Durant. I just put together Kevin Durant and Kevin Garnett into the same name. Kevin Garnett on the Minnesota Timberwolves was never going to win a championship with the Timberwolves. How it was working out, he went to the Celtics and won a championship. That is exactly what is going to happen with Donovan Mitchell. He is going to waste his years in Utah. He's going to go somewhere else that is functionally capable of winning basketball games and is going to win a championship, right? So what do we do as Utah Jazz fans, and what does the Utah Jazz franchise and front office need to do? They need to make it the best possible place for a guy like him to win a championship in Utah. And to do that, we cannot be using the team that we currently have, right? So, rebuild time. There's a lot of young players in the league I'd like to see on the Jazz with Donovan Mitchell. Pull a semi OKC, right? So kind of the same thing that OKC's doing, but not quite to that extent because you're just going to end up wasting more years of Donovan Mitchell. You want to be right between a rebuild and a win now. I think you have about a 3-year gap, right? A 3-year gap where I think Donovan Mitchell would be in on it because then he'd be about 28, hitting his prime when the whole team is coming together and win a couple championships. I think that is what you pitch to Donovan Mitchell. You got to prepare for a 3-year quasi-rebuild. When you turn 28 and you're in the peak of your prime, we're going to get a championship team around you, and we're going to try to win a championship. And you're going to be the hero of Utah. You're going to be the hero of millions of people. That's what I'd pitch because I don't think a single other pitch is going to work. You're not going to if you pitch, well, we're just going to run it back with this team that is currently 6th seeded and is probably going to lose in the first round of the playoffs next year. I think you're just going to he's going to be like, I'd rather not do that. Let me go to a team that actually has a shot to win literally a single playoff round. You know what I mean? The Utah Jazz are very frustrating, and I know a lot of people watching this aren't Utah Jazz fans because I live in Kentucky, but anybody that is or just pays attention to NBA basketball will know exactly where I'm coming from. But I think that is all I have to talk about today. Rather short episode. And I'm glad I sat down and recorded this and stopped being a lazy lard for about 30 minutes. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed listening to me talk about topics that you may not have even cared about. And listen to TTP, the 3 Wine Podcast, hopefully coming out this Monday. But we have a ton of episodes. If you haven't caught up, go ahead and do that. You can catch that on this channel or Apple Podcasts and Spotify at the 3 Wine Podcast. Go check us out on every social media at 3 Wine Sports. We have a really cool blog that we post regularly on. Read cool articles on there from several guys that all talk about different things, have different points of view, expertises on different sports, teams, topics. I think that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching the Ethan Alexander Show.